What's going on, guys? My name is Gio, and today I'm going to be talking about the great Amiibo craze from a while back. Hey everyone, welcome back again, and I decided today I kind of wanted to switch it up a bit, so here's a video on Nintendo for the first time. I'm going to talk about a craze that many of us may remember. I'm sure most of us will, considering a majority of us were born in early 2000s, or maybe even later than that. You might still remember it. But I'm going to be talking about the Amiibo craze. For those of you who are unaware of what an Amiibo is, and this is your first time hearing about him, an Amiibo is a Nintendo character, or a character that was licensed by a different company and given to Nintendo, that would be a three-dimensional character that was on a circular pedestal, and you could stand it up. And most people use it as displays, and personally I collected a few back in the day, but I in no way was as crazy as some of these people were for Amiibo. I liked Amiibo, but not as much as some people do today, and back then. An Amiibo was also pretty popular considering it had a chip. It had like a memory chip that would be inside of the pedestal, and when you would scan it onto your Wii U at the time, or now Nintendo Switch because it's still compatible, it would give you benefits. Maybe it was food, maybe it was health, maybe it was clothes, etc. These collectibles actually were officially released on June 10th, 2014. So yes, I would assume a majority of us were alive. And it was Nintendo's way of making more profit, considering their Nintendo Switch had been an absolute flop compared to their other things. And pretty much when it came out, it was essentially another version of Black Friday. Like, that's how insane that it got. Like, I still remember how crazy it was that day when the Amiibos first came out and people were excited about it. It was crazy. People were crowding stores, people were like pretty much just going everywhere to get Amiibo, and it was so crazy that on the day that they were released, the GameStop server, if you don't know, actually crashed. Like, the entire servers for every single computer on GameStop, in stores and online, crashed because people were looking for them. It was certainly a day to remember. But at the same time, this was also pretty good for Nintendo. Nintendo had finally found their way of profit in the dark time where the Wii U sold like hot garbage. And today, the Nintendo Switch is out and Amiibos are still compatible as well. Nintendo still makes and manufactures about 7 Amiibo characters a year. So they're still making new ones as well as manufacturing the old ones. And they're still getting a steady profit. Maybe not as good as before, but they're still getting some pretty good profit. They found a way to make the world go insane, essentially. And these figures were also a very good way of profit. And pretty much it would just be where there were forums, there were news articles, all talking about Amiibo, and this is exactly what Nintendo wanted. They wanted Amiibo being said from the rooftops, essentially, and they had gotten what they wanted. It was pretty much through a little bit of advertising, some news articles, and maybe a few cringy ads. Yes, there were a fair amount of cringy ads from Nintendo at the time. It was just exactly what Nintendo wanted, and pretty much it was just what most people call the Amiibo craze. People would spend tons of money just to get a collection of all of them, and they were usually around $10 to $12 each. So imagine people buying those in tons. And for other limited editions, people would pay even more for them, which is sort of amazing. And to this day, they're still manufactured along with the Switch. And now today, I guess you could say, even with quarantine, it got crazy again. But fast forward to 2017, Nintendo Switch had come out, and since the Nintendo Switch came out, most people were pretty happy about it, considering it was a console you could take anywhere you go, and it was a Nintendo console, meaning that most people were very interested in this. And money's coming in, you know, people are talking about Nintendo Switches left and right, and again, this is exactly like the Amiibo craze that happened before, except this time guess you could call it the Nintendo Switch craze. Obviously, I guess you could say obviously, it wasn't as bad as the whole Amiibo craze when it came to people like shutting down stores and websites from it, but people still went fairly nuts for this console. And even now with quarantine, people are starting to do it again because everybody wants to go and get a Nintendo Switch to pass the time during the whole quarantine and the coronavirus. And even more with Animal Crossing coming out, they're starting to become global again. Like, this is the same time as when Super Smash Bros. Came out. Anytime there's a highly anticipated game that would be released for the Switch, Nintendo would just get the profits it wanted, and as well as what they wanted, have everything in the news. So, I guess you could say this was a big success for Nintendo. And it was just several times where they've had some big craze that's going on, and like, yes, we are sort of in a mini Nintendo Switch craze because of quarantine and everything, but I don't think anything will ever be as big as when there was the case of Amiibo, because Amiibo, that went crazy worldwide because they were first released in, I believe, Europe, and that was the first sighting, but as soon as it hit the US, things went out of control. Anyways, there's another video for you guys. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching my video, and maybe consider leaving a comment for my Q&A video that I'm planning on making a bit in the future. Give it a like if you want, subscribe, and maybe even hit that bell if you're inclined, and you don't want to miss any videos that I make when I first upload them. Anyways, have a good day, and as I always say, stay awesome, stay quarantined.